the previous videos, we learned how to create the architecture diagrams for threat modeling. Let us now set the properties for each of the diagram elements. When we click on any architecture elements on the diagram, the Element Properties window shows a list of properties related to the selected architecture element. As you can see, we have currently selected Certificate File Store, and the properties related to it are visible. Let us understand the properties and how to set them. Remember, when creating the architecture diagram, we used File System Stencil to represent the certificate file store. The property shown here is named Store's Credentials. It has two options, yes and no. Since this is a certificate store, we set the value yes for this property. The next property is Store's log data. Since the certificate store does not store log data, we will keep it as no. For the property name encrypted, for now let us assume the certificate store is not encrypted. We keep this as well, no. The property write access can have the value yes, as streaming server writes data to certificate store. Similarly, we set the other properties for the element. It is very important to ensure all properties are set with right values from the options to ensure the software generates the valid threats only. By setting right values to the properties, we can reduce false positive threat generation. Let us explore the properties of streaming server. The property here is asking us with what privilege the server process is started. We have choose the value such as kernel or administrator for privileged processes. If the process is started with least privileges, then local service or without elevation can be chosen. For this exercise, let us imagine the server is started with kernel privileges. The next property is isolation level. This property indicates how secure or isolated the server is. If an attack on server cannot destroy other elements of the underlying compute system, then we can call is as sandbox. For this exercise, let us set the value to app container indicating a managed environment. The property accepts inputs from should have the value based on where is the input coming from. Out of the different options provided, the user browser can be best described as any remote user. So we choose the most insecure value for this attribute. For the next attributes related to authentication, authorization, let us assume the development architect is unsure of the methods used, so we mark them as no for now. The next two attributes, sanitizes input and output, are related to input validation performed by the streaming server. Assuming the architect has considered the input validation, let us mark these attributes as yes, indicating we are secure. The user browser is not managed by the solution we are building. We are not responsible for the security of the browser. Hence, we can mark the element as out of scope and provide justification text. When we mark some element as out of scope, the software does not generate threats related to the element. We do not have to set the property values for such elements. We are at the end of the video and we learned how to create threat model diagrams, set the property values for the elements. Thank you.